And now the survival show that once survived turning orange after eating too many carrots. It's a real thing, apparently. In this episode, we go back to basics with a short discussion on water. Are you ignoring a crucial prep or probably overthinking it? Howdy and welcome to the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 289. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. A quick note before we dive into this episode, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're watching this on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and ring that bell if you're into that kind of thing. Water sits in the second position of the basic 8. For those not familiar, the basic 8 are a set of survival priorities I worked up for y'all. You usually hear it said as food, water, shelter, security, companionship, etc. But when I started building a large bug-out bag and survival kits course, I wasn't happy with the more traditional model and felt it needed to be rethought and organized. For instance, I thought to put food at the beginning to be suboptimal way of stating things because water is way more important than food in most cases. You can go up to 3 weeks without food, but only 3 days without water. Using a timing and dependency look at the primary and base survival priorities, I place it as number 2. Body temperature is number 1, as illustrated by Cody Lundin's, or is it London's, book, whatever. Cody Lundin's book, 98.6 degrees. Really good book if you've never checked it out before. We'll go through the priorities in more depth in a few weeks. But for now, let's get back to the basics of water. Why is water so important? You can survive for 3 days without water, barring environmental and extenuating circumstances. Your third day is going to suck completely, though. Without water, your health declines rapidly, you get nasty headaches, confusion sets in, and there might be something about pink elephants in there along the way. Your body requires water to perform its essential functions: waste removal, maintaining body temperature, food digestion, and that's just to name a few. It also has a significant impact on your cognitive functioning, hence the pink elephants. And most people walk around in a perpetual state of dehydration as it is. The trouble with water for preppers is that humans require a lot of it. It takes up a large volume of space, it's heavy, and for some reason, storage and production seem complicated. To meet your basic needs, you need roughly 1.5 gallons of water per person per day available at all times. For your pets, you need about a gallon if you've got a Great Dane or something like that, excluding large, farm animals or something. This doesn't include bathing. 1.5 gallons is just for cooking and consumption. Now, a gallon of water takes up 231 cubic inches. To provide for one person for 1 week, that's going to be roughly 1.5 cubic feet and weigh 87.57 pounds. Hence, the space and weight issues mount. At any one time, we have 25 gallons of water on hand for my wife and me, and it takes up a large wire rack shelf in our pantry, at least half of it. Our water inventory is down from the 125 gallons we used to store in our last house. Our natural sources of water procurement increased, and I decided we didn't need to stock as much because of it. This brings us to perceptions. Many perceive water storage and production as being more complicated than it needs to be. Let's address the basics quickly, and we'll assume you're starting with clean tap water or at least filtered and sanitized water to begin. Store your water in a relatively tough food-grade plastic or glass container with a securable opening. An opaque container is best, so it doesn't allow in sunlight. And the tank should be sanitized first using a little clean water and some chlorine bleach. You do not need to go crazy with the bleach. Think drops, not ounces. I'll provide a link in the show notes. 2-liter soda bottles also work. The big 5-gallon jugs work, and the purpose-built water containers work as well. We use the Reliance water containers because they're convenient, but you don't need to spend a bunch of money to do this. Here's the thing. Filtered and sanitized water does not go foul per se. Water is inert. It's just hydrogen and oxygen. Drinking water generally has some sodium and other elements and minerals in it, but that's it. What spoils water are contaminants like algae, bacteria, and other biological contaminants. These are things you'll get rid of during that initial sanitation process. There are also chemical contaminant concerns, but those are relatively simple to address. Don't store your water in weird containers or near chemicals. If you want to be extra cautious, you can add 8 drops of bleach into the water after you fill your container, then seal it up. But you should still clean the container first to ensure it is sterile. Now, here's a big myth we need to dispel. The thing about not storing water in a plastic bottle directly on concrete is a myth, from what I can determine. I've heard this for years, if not decades, and I have never found anything that actually supports this, academic or otherwise. I've even run extensive searches through a research university's library trying to find anyone who had ever actually done a study on this, and there is nothing. Even with the help of a librarian, again, at a research university, we came up with nothing. Admittedly, you can't prove a negative, but what I did do was conduct enough research that I believe this is a myth. Next, pack away a filter you can use for processing gallons at a time. Sawyer's makes some that are both good and inexpensive, and then there's the Berkey, and the list goes on from there. You can get pretty crazy with this stuff. Also, think about what is the simplest way in your environment to procure water if you run out that does not involve walking a mile with a 5-gallon bucket weighing 43 pounds. You can also store some powdered bleach, typically used for pools. This will save longer than liquid bleach. Just be careful with it. Do your homework, keep it out of the reach of children and the intoxicated. So here's the summary. Store 1.5 gallons of water per person per day. Store a minimum of 3 days worth with a maximum of whatever makes you feel secure. Use clean water and a clean container to start. Store a good water filter, bleach, and a simple means of procurement. You want to get fancy? Get fancy, baby. But otherwise, keep it simple. And that's what I think about that. Damn it. Show notes, resources, and links from this episode can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E289. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, just look in the description section below this video. And speaking of YouTube, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to do all that YouTube stuff. Throw us a like, subscribe, and slap that bell around because bananas are yellow. With that, we wrap up episode number 289 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.